This is the Life Roast. I'm John. This is T. And today, what we're going to do, and what we do every time, is we try to pop out of the box a little bit and have some uncomfortable conversations, get a little uncomfortable, and challenge some social norms, challenge some ways of behavior like today, and try to find some solutions, some alternatives to the way that we go about life and the way that we go through life. So today we are talking about social cues and those people, and we all know these people, right? There's always this one person in all of our lives who just can't read the room, who just doesn't get it, who just talks on and on and on, or drains the energy, or goes on about something and just really can't see or notice or is aware of what's going on around them. It's almost like this self-centeredness, right? Like this just lack of self-awareness, this lack of or this overabundance of self-centeredness. And so that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to roast a little bit. We're going to try to keep this very broad and then hone in on some potential solutions if you think maybe, hey, after all this, I might be this person. So we're going to talk about all that fun stuff. It's going to be a great time.
Yep. So part of this discussion comes from, we all know this person. We're involved in this person. It just so happens that there are people that over the last few weeks in my world that you're in a room and you're wondering, what the hell are they talking about? And you think, how did I get stuck again talking to this person? Or, they've just pegged you as the person they need to come up to and just unload about everything going on, or every person in their life, and how no one understands. And it's like, it just came to the culmination of this conversation. And John and I the other day were talking about topics, and it just meandered into, oh God, this happened. And then you start talking about it and you're like, wow, that's a topic. So, the idea here is this. We get in conversations, a lot of times it's with family members, business colleagues at work. I deal with that a lot with what I do. Where it just gets to a point where if you have to meet with that person, or they're coming over your home, or you have to go to their home, there's this automatic angst of, please, can we just get out of this? Because this person doesn't have a clue. They just feel like what they're saying is 100% true, and you don't even know how to answer back to them. So that'll be a discussion. We'll kind of get into some specifics here, but the funny part of this, you should look at this or listen to this conversation and wonder, are you that person?
Yes.
Like, really, what are the cues? We'll do our best. This is kind of just going to be a rant. I have some internet facts in front of me here, really not facts, but just pulled off some definitions of different personality types that fit this mold. But it's like, understand, do you own some of these characteristics, and is there something you can do about it? And then, like John said, when we get to the end, if you're stuck in one of these conversations, how do you get out of it? Because God knows we've all been stuck in conversations where it's almost to a point where you have to be rude and just go, you know what, I think I need to, go to the bathroom or whatever it is. Like, instantly you have to leave the conversation. So that's our discussion today.
Man, let's hear those definitions. I'm curious.
So
what do we got?
Part of it was I was trying to figure out, okay, what is like someone that doesn't know how to read the room. So it says refers to the ability to understand the emotions and dynamics of a social setting, such as groups of people's opinions and attitudes. Or essentially, there's lots of different ways to read the room. Someone, you come in the room and you want to spill out some great news because, you just scratched off a lottery ticket and you won $1,000. Well, that's great. But you walk in the room and, before you even question what's going on, you spew your happiness and find out that Becky's mom just passed away. She just got the phone call, and everyone in the room's somber, but you walked in without even realizing it and kind of killed everything because, it wasn't the right time. That's just one cue. The other one is, you're having a conversation with someone and the conversation's about anything but negativity. And they go into, what drives me mad? Or, what pisses me off? Or, it's always this and it's always that. And I feel like this. And it's like the conversation went from talking about a carnival or a festivity or a party to they're annoyed because Aunt Becky said she was going to bring the salad, but she didn't. She brought macaroni and cheese, and everyone was looking forward to a salad, and now this entire conversation is about how pissed off they are. And now later on, like everyone knows that she's not happy or they're not happy, and so that's where not reading the room. Like no one gives a shit about the salad. Like no one cared. Only you cared. But you had to blow this thing out of proportion. And then this person starts, the one time, and then I call it the calculator. You go back and you start adding up all the other inferences or instances of when so-and-so, this person didn't do something or this or that. And then that turns into a new conversation. Yeah. And they're getting divorced. I know why they're getting divorced. Like, holy shit, how did we get into this conversation and reading what's going on? So that was part of it. The other one that I went into was personal space. Now, this is more on the read the room, but also how many people do you know that just invade your personal space? Like they don't know how to stand back from a conversation. Like you keep backing up and they keep walking towards you because they feel like they need to either, I don't know, get closer or like you can't hear them. So not only are they spewing nonsense, but they're also like on top of you where it's so damn annoying. Thoughts before I go into my next one?
No, you can go out on your next one. We'll dive into it.
So constant negative critiquing, constantly ragging on others, pointing out their weaknesses and offering solutions to non-existent problems. So this is a part of not reading the room, but it's really just sucking the air out of the room, that everything that comes out of this, the person you're talking to's mouth is just critical about whether it's about you or they're criticizing someone else. And it's usually they're criticizing someone else, looking for some type of ownership from you, like you're going to agree with them. And then 9 times out of 10, you just agree with them because it's not worth the fight. Like they're just spewing.
Oh, like just people that like need constant validation.
Yeah, constant validation of the whatever they're saying. And half the time what's coming out of their mouth, you're like, what? What are you talking? Like, why are we even in this conversation? And I see this a lot at work. You leave a meeting and you think everything went well, and come to find out that the 3 people that were in the meeting were not happy, but you don't find out till later on. Like no one said anything during the meeting. And you think, well, why do I got to hear this third hand or second hand or whatever it is? But they don't have the balls to stand up and say it to my face or say it to whoever needs to hear it. But they will go around the gossip mill and just start talking and criticizing and doing all that. So it's just, that's what's there. And then hypercritical people is always finding fault in everything around them, never to blame themselves. Like every single thing around you is someone else's fault. And these people are just, like I say, I'll probably say it 50 times, they suck the air out of the room. You don't want to be in the room. There's no oxygen.
So there's a distinction in my mind. We went from like social cues to not being aware of our attitude and the way that we affect the energy in the room, right? And as far as like social cues go, like the people that are like on top of you all the time are the people that just go on and on and on and really can't pick up. It's funny on that side of things, you hear the old like the Midwest way of getting out of going places or getting out of the house. Just like, oh, well, like, and you make that like social cue or whatever. And like, that's the time to go. Like people, I feel like most of us growing up, we pick up on those social cues over time. And like, there's this like peripheral part of our brain that says, okay, like I need to focus on this and this and the way that they're moving their hands and the way that they're moving their eyes, the things that they're saying subtly and all this stuff. And I feel like some people just miss out entirely on all of that, right? It's like, I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people where I will literally just turn around like not mid-sentence, but like a sentence will be over. I think the conversation's over. I will turn around and start walking away and they will just start again, all over again. It's like, dude, like you see me walking away. Right? Or you see me looking away all the time, right? And those are social cues. Like I'm uninterested, right? It's like a lot of people just don't know to pick up on that. Or like when you're constantly backing away and they're like, no, I need to be closer. It's like, no, dude, like back away, right? And there should be, and you know, maybe I'm missing the part of life where like a lot of people aren't privy to this. I mean, I don't remember taking a class on it. I don't know if it was something that I was taught or what to pick up on it. I feel like it's somewhat subconscious though. So like in my mind, I'm like, how do you not notice that? And how do you like just start a conversation when somebody's already walking away? Or I have to go to the bathroom and they just go on and on and on and on still, right? And all these things, and it's just like, Jesus. And then on the other side of it is I call them chronic complainers, right? Like the people who just, they suck the air out of the room, and they don't, and this is where I went back to like the self-centeredness originally. Because it's just like these people walk into a room and it's always negative and nobody wants to have a conversation with them. And it's almost like you feel forced to have a conversation with them. And so you just let it, what I think happens is like these people get so used to being able to complain to people that they just constantly do it. And there goes the social cue completely out the window, because it's almost like people enable them all the time to do so. It's like, so, well, what, like, how do you get there? And like, how do you get out of that? You know, but it's crazy because like on both sides of this thing, I can just visually see all the times it's happened over just the last year in my life. And it's like, you don't want to be the person that walks into a room and people are just like, oh God.
Well, yeah.
I really that's not a good place to be.
And that's the hard part. How about these? And it just made me think of this. How about the person that the entire conversation's about them?
All the time,
whether it's positive or negative in their conversation, like they are waiting for the moment to steal. It's like they steal the mic and they ain't giving it back. Like you're talking about, hey, I had a great day at work today. I landed this great big contract. And so, let me tell you about this. Hold on a second. I know you're in the middle of something. Like they cut you off. Like, well, you didn't even get to explain. And like I had this one contract and da 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 da. And like 15 minutes later, literally 15, they finished their story, and you're almost to the point of like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like I thought we were having communication here and you turned it about you. Or when you're like, I know, right? But then you try it and then they change the topic again. This just made me think of this, and my wife will laugh or be mad that I bring this up. But
oh no,
her high school friends, all great ladies, fun loving, whatever. And we don't hang out with them often, but when we do, it's like if there's 5 or 6 of them in a conversation and I'm just standing there listening, they all talk over each other. Like one person is telling a story and like you just said, you wait till the end of the sentence. No, they don't wait. They just cut the person off. But all 5 of them will do it all during mid-conversation. Like, oh, my son was doing this. And then when he went to daycare, and then the next person, oh my God, my daycare is brutal. And they're like, well, she didn't finish her point. Like, whoa, stop, don't talk. And like, nope, the 4th person is already on the next conversation. I'm like, holy shit, this is draining. Like, no one gives a crap. It's like, you know, the old saying, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen more than you speak. They don't have ears. It's just, I need to speak. And they cut each other off and no one's listening. So it's like, well, did you even learn anything about each other? Because it's so quick. I want to get my coolness out or my negativity or my pain in the ass out. Like, just everyone pause, listen, know your cue. Okay, now it's your turn to talk. Assimilate with them, understand what they're saying, and then give your diatribe of what you may have experienced in that or your positivity. Hopefully it's positive and not negative. But I see that as the other social cue, like, wow, you cared more about your own personal thoughts than this person started the conversation. You asked them a question, you know, hey, how is your son doing? And they go, oh, he's doing really well. Or you know what, he's had a rough go with this. Oh, I remember when my kids were that age. Like, you didn't even let me finish my conversation. That seems to be like the standard from what I experience. I see it in business all the time. Presenters are trying to do stuff and someone's got a question right away. Like, give them a second. They may get to the point of the question that you're asking. Like, Jesus.
Well, again, self-centeredness.
Yeah.
Right. It's this, the impatience, and I feel like a lot of people use the word, I think it's like neurodivergent.
Wow.
Okay.
I'd have to go to Google for that one. But
anyway, so there's a word that explains how there's a group of people who, to relate to your story, they have to be like vocal about it. Right. It's one of those, it's not, I'm trying to one up you. It's just that I'm trying to engage in the conversation. Right. But what I feel happens is there's this distinction between that and being self-centered, in the sense that if I don't speak up soon enough, somebody else is going to take the spotlight from me too, right? Like if I don't interrupt you now and I wait till the end of the sentence, that gives too much time for somebody else to hop in and then when am I ever going to speak? When am I ever going to tell you my thoughts? Oh my God, they're in my head. I have to get them out. Mm-hmm. Right. And like, I feel, and this is so along the lines with what we talk about a lot in the times. It's just that, like, I need to be significant. I need to be in the spotlight. I need to spew everything out of my mind. I can't hold it in. I can't, right? It's just like, and we enable that all the time. Cause like, I bet you nobody says anything. I bet you none one of those 5 people says, hey, hold up. Let me finish what I'm saying, right? None of them say it.
No, they almost fall in line like, oh,
exactly.
I lost my turn.
And so like the longer we go doing that, what do you think's going to happen? People are going to keep doing it. And it's the impatience, it's the self-centeredness, it's the lack of self-awareness, it's all these things. And it's just, when you said that, I'm like, man, that sounds like my brain, right? Like I have 5 different conversations going on. And they're all like, I'm like, so it's like, it's ADHD, like in action in a group of people. It's hilarious.
Right. Well, I think a part of that too in the ADHD, because this is how my mind works. And God, I mean, again, my famous line, 15 seconds in my head and you'd be tired all day. The people in this zone, and I could tell because I watch their eyeballs. I'm very intuitive with this. You can tell when I'm speaking, they're not listening. They're putting together their next thought. They've heard a small snippet of what I said, and it immediately triggers their brain into something like, oh my God, remember that one time, right? And then he fell off, right? And then the car came, and then, and I've just rattled off, let's say 2 minutes of a really important topic, and they heard nothing because they were so ready to just pounce. As soon as I paused, they were going to give me their thing. If I quizzed them on what I said, they didn't listen. And I'm guilty. Total hypocrite. My wife will say this. Total hypocrite. I'm not paying attention.
Every husband out there is.
Yes. And she's, what I just say? And I think, shit, she's on to me. She knows I was off in Never Land thinking about something else. Different conversation though. That's me just not paying attention. But you could tell having these conversations with these people, it's like, they're not listening.
Well, okay. So here's the funny thing, right? You brought up your wife, and I instantly thought about my wife because I don't know if I'm not going to say it's a male problem, but it's a male problem. It's a male problem. But anyway, so like, I'm always telling my wife, I'm like, hey, hang on a second. Like, I have no idea what you just said. Right? Like, I wasn't paying attention.
Yep.
And sometimes she'll notice, and I'm like, you got to like yell, like, for whatever reason, my brain, it just goes places. Like, just reel me back in, and I'm there, right? Like, I'll focus. It's just hard to do so. And it's just really funny to have those like back and forth. It's like, I'm sorry, hang on.
Right.
Don't talk yet.
Well, that's
just 3 seconds and then I'll be fully engaged with what you're saying. Right. Like, but just being able to speak up and say that, right? A lot of people won't do it.
Right. Well, and that's true. It's owning your ignorance, I guess. But just as you were saying that, thinking, know the room or feel the cues. Like, again, going back to the wife, and I think every guy is guilty of this, and it's probably mainly guys because we're idiots. I sometimes forget the stress of being a mom, where I walk in the door, my positive, happy-go-lucky, whether I had a shit day or not, I try and, I'm Mr. Positivity, Mr. whatever, and I walk in the door, and okay, if you can picture the scene, there's a load of laundry sitting on the counter and not folded. The dogs have a half-chewed toy on the floor. I got one son in the family room watching TV, another son in the little sitting area watching TV. Their shoes are all over the place. There's dishes in the sink, and my wife is running around she's going out to the barbecue, and because she's trying to make dinner. And I walk in like everything's great and hunky-dory, and she walks in and says to my son, Sammy, can you please go upstairs like I've asked you for the 35th time to go do whatever. Go make your bed, go clean your room, bring your laundry down. And she snaps. And I go, come on, what things aren't that bad. Like, let's go. Like, hey, what are you yelling at him for? And like, I'm trying to be Dr. Phil and I don't understand the situation. Well, again, I didn't know the room. Like when I look around afterwards and I realized, okay, that was the 35th time she asked him to go upstairs. She's been running like an idiot. She has her job that she does too, and da 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 da. And I'm sitting here trying to talk her off the ledge where I don't know what the hell's going on, but I think I'm Mr. Cool, Mr. Fixer Upper, and da da da. Where I just escalated even further. Now she's looking at me like that wife looks at a husband in that ever oh so special way. Like if I didn't go to jail, I would kill you right now. So we're hypocrites, or at least I'm a hypocrite right now on knowing the room. There are situations where I don't know the room. But I think where I want to make sure we stick here is the individuals that suck the air out of the room with their just straight up negativity and criticism, because it's hard. It's hard to be with these people.
It's incredibly hard to be with those people. I feel like I know what it's like to have my energy drained by the people around me. And it's just like, who wants to be that person? Why would you want to be that person? I don't know if anybody actually wants to be that person, but a lot of people are. And like there's places that I just completely avoid and people that I just completely avoid, because it's just like I don't want to do this anymore. You know? And that really sucks. Mm-hmm. But what's crazy is that those people tend to not know who they are.
Right. So how do you get those people to know?
Well, by stuff like this. This is how we feel. This is what you're doing, right? Like if you notice that somebody is not engaged, they're not making a lot of eye contact, they're not asking questions, they're not responding, they're just kind of like looking away, and they're trying to walk out, and they're fiddling with their hands, and they're doing these things, like pick up on that stuff, right? Because here's the thing, if it's an engaging, positive interaction, people are like 10 times more likely to ask questions,
right,
and respond,
right,
and all that stuff. Like if they're not, they're checked out, they're out of it. So here's the funny thing, right? Like, and I don't want to take it completely away, because I'm one of those people, like it's better to try to understand than to be understood.
Right.
Right. And so like the 2 ears, 1 mouth thing, like where do we draw the line? And this is for the other side of it. It's like, where do I draw the line as somebody who's engaged in a conversation with somebody who's like that, where I am listening because I'm trying to understand and I'm trying to be friendly, and the point where I say, you know what, I'm good, I'm out of here. Right? Like, where do we draw that line at? You know?
That's the rough part. I mean, I am one that I don't care. I care about people, but I don't care about your thoughts, and I don't care about your woes, unless you physically come to me and say, I need your support and I need your help.
Absolutely.
I have no problem walking away. Do I do it in a rude manner? Like, nope, I'm done. I can't listen to you. No, I would never do that. Do I have the quick answer? Like, you know what? Hold that thought. Got to run to the restroom real quick. I apologize. I got my back teeth are floating. Some kind of humor, and I'm out. And then I just forget to go back to the conversation. And it's not that I forget. I make it my intention to not go back by that person again, or avoid them, or just leave. Like, I'm done. Like, this person will scope me out, and I'm done. It's not fun being here. So I leave. Or during the conversation, I get stuck there. I don't say a freaking word. Literally just stare at the mother, bitching and moaning.
You know what's funny, right? I feel like I take the complete opposite approach. Okay. I mean, sometimes I'll try to check out, but and maybe I'm a total dick for this. I don't know. But I'm kind of a troll when it comes to this stuff, right? I'm the guy who, like, if I feel like I can't get out of the conversation, I might as well have fun with it. Right. And so I'm not necessarily like sitting here, I'm not going to criticize you and all this stuff, but I'm going to crack jokes like, oh my God, that sounds so awful. Have you tried, like, right, and like focus on the solutions and stuff like that. And most of the time in a subtle way, but it's funny that we talk about stuff like this, because I was just having this conversation yesterday in anticipation of this discussion. And I'm like, sometimes I'm this person. Right. There's people out there, I am fully aware, don't want to have conversations with me.
Right.
Right. But I feel like it's because of the complete opposite side of this. It's because like it's negative people that don't want to have a conversation with me, because I am so solution oriented and so positive all the time.
Yeah.
that it drives them absolutely nuts because I don't feed into their shit.
Right.
Right. Like I will not have a conversation that is just constant negativity.
Right.
Won't happen. Right. And most of the time I won't walk away. I'm just super sarcastic. And I just like, because I try to disrupt the patterns.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm like, if I'm going to be friends with you and you're going to be completely negative all the time, I'm going to at least try to change this whole pattern, or I'm going to leave.
Right.
Because I just don't allow that into my life. Period.
Right. Oh yeah.
But it gets kind of funny to do so because it usually leads to a laugh. Right, like, God, John, you're such a dick. Like, right. why can't you just let me bitch about my life? And it's just like, well, because I'd hope you'd do the same for me. But I don't know if that's necessarily a social cue thing, but I guess it is. I guess I'm aware though. It's just funny.
Well, I my roughest part with individuals like this, and again, we're all hypocrites. We're probably all in this position at one point where we're bitching and moaning about stuff. And my profession as a consultant coach, I'm constantly in conversations where someone may be listening to me like, Jesus T, stop. Like, because I am. My thing is I go into distressed businesses and I help turn them around. Well, so every conversation I have is negative. The company's in trouble. The company's suffering in some aspect. So our conversation is always negative. And because I've done this so many times with other companies, when I walk into this company, like, it's okay. I know you're bad, but let me tell you a story about how bad this one company is. And I don't give names, but, and then I'm sitting there going on and on. And I'm like, no, there was one time where we had this. And then I stop myself like, stop, bro. Like, you're being that person. You could tell. And I look, because I do this for a living, I just watch their eyes. If their eyes aren't engaged, like, they're off in Never Never Land. Even if they're staring at you, you can tell they're not paying attention. Like, they're not hearing you. You've somehow tuned them out. But again, I trained myself to understand this, whereas other people, and I think this is the social cue, like, what are those social cues? And there's one for you, is the eyes. If their eyes are gone and you're having that conversation, like, they're not paying attention anymore. You've turned them off. If you're the individual spewing stuff and you are just spewing to spew and you're not paying attention to the body language, which you're normally not, trust me, and hopefully you hear me, you're going to realize people aren't around you. Like, people aren't coming over to you during a party. Like, all of a sudden you're no longer the focus of the room. Everyone will be nice in the beginning and come greet everyone. And then later on, you'll feel like you're standing alone. It's like, you're not standing alone because everyone's ignoring you, but they might be. Because normally you're just a breath of nonsense. And I feel bad saying it, because there's some people that may be listeners, they'll think because I'm saying this, I'm talking about them. There's no one person in mind that I'm thinking of right now. I have plenty of people in my life that are like this, but just know that certain individuals don't want to hang out with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, you made a good point there. This is one of those topics that we are not personally attacking anybody, right? When I hear stuff like this, it's like, if I feel attacked, then maybe, just maybe, I should probably ask myself a couple questions. First one being, am I this person? Right? Because, and it sucks to admit, it sucks getting honest and saying, wow, like, people really don't engage with me a lot. Right? Or I'm always talking to people, but nobody's ever talking back to me.
Right.
Like, am I one of those people? And it sucks to admit stuff like that. But like, that is how we learn. And here's what sucks is, like, I feel like there's not a lot of learning about communication in general throughout life, right? All we have are the interactions that we've had and the experiences that we've had up till now, right? Most people don't know, when I say communication classes or communication books or any of that stuff, like, most people have never read a book on communications. They've never listened to an audio about communications. They've never taken a course on communications. And all of those courses talk about social cues. They talk about how to ask questions and how to get information and how to connect with people and all this stuff. And it's like, one of the things that I would suggest as an alternative solution, if you feel like you might be one of these people, go pick up a book, right? Go watch a YouTube video, about communications, right? Who is, I think, John Maxwell?
Mm-hmm.
John Maxwell, I think, is like a huge one.
Oh yeah.
Right. Just read one of his books about communications.
Right.
And leadership. He talks about leadership, but a lot of the leadership books talk about communication.
Right, absolutely.
But yeah, just going through and actually learning about it so that you don't have to be, even if you're not one of these people, I would suggest reading something like that anyways, because like we all want to be better. If we want to connect with other people, we should be better at communicating,
If people consciously understand they need to do that. I don't think people
I think we all need to do that.
Well, we all do, but I'm sure there's self-help books everywhere that everyone should pick up. If I had the endless budget, I'd start emailing and shipping Amazon books to everyone. But I think another point I was thinking of when you were talking about that is the individuals, and maybe some of you people know this. There are certain aspects or characteristics in people where they only know how to talk about one thing.
Yeah.
I have family members in my life that religion is their thing. More power to them. I have friends that have, things that they like, sports, their kids in sports. Like every time you have a conversations with these people, it always goes back to religion. It always goes back to their kid in sports. It always goes back to their business or whatever. It's like they don't know how to talk about anything but what's on the front of their forehead. Just, okay, religion. How do we get talking about religion? We were just talking about the news, or we were talking about, life in general.
Politics is another one.
Yeah, and right, politics, but whatever. And it's like, okay, how did this conversation where we were talking about making a recipe for cheesy potatoes come back to the Bible? Like, what? How are we back on God again? Like, I don't want to talk about that. Like, it's not that I'm not against it, but it's like, why does it come up every time? Or, hey, we're going to talk about, did you realize the traffic the other day? Oh my God, the traffic the other day when we were going to my daughter's softball game. Like, oh God, here we go again. We're going right back to the kids in sports. Like, that's all we ever talk about. So it's like, wow, is that all they have?
Well, yeah, but that's a real thing. And that's a real annoying thing.
Right.
And I get it. Again, the hypocrisy is that everything I talk about revolves around positivity and self-help and growth and development. And again, it annoys people, and I know how annoying I can be. It's not a good feeling all the time.
Right.
I mean, I mostly don't care. It's just being the person on the other end of that. Like there's a handful of people that I can think of right now that is the exact reason why I don't engage in conversations with them, because I know exactly where it's going to go and I don't want to hear any more of it.
Right.
It's not. And here's the thing about all of this, right? I'm going to go back. This is not a personal attack thing. I'm not sitting here saying that all these people are evil people and they're horrible people and all this stuff, right? Like shit happens. We all do this stuff. It's whether or not we want to become aware of it and make a change. Are we that person who sits there and has a conversation about the same thing every single time we talk to somebody? And do we think that that's not annoying? Right? Like how do we think we are affecting this conversation by talking about sports every single time our mouth opens? Mm-hmm. How are we developing a relationship with somebody else if that's the direction that we always go?
Right.
That's our go-to.
I agree.
And I don't know if it's a comfort thing.
I think it is a comfort thing. I think it's you don't know what else to talk about. Like that's all you have that you feel good. Like, okay, I can have a long conversation about this. Like, yeah, but I don't really give a shit about that.
Well, maybe that's them trying to connect. Right. Right. Like that's, yeah.
Right. And that, I guess that comes back to your statement on communication. Like, how do you learn more? I don't know. I guess that's where I come back and say, okay, can you say something to the person? Okay, I read this really great book the other day. You should read it. Like, what are you saying? I'm saying Jesus. All we ever talk about is football. All we ever talk about is church.
Well, in questions, man. I think questions are one of the best tools at your disposal to having effective communications with other human beings.
Right.
Right. Like if you don't have anything different to say, ask questions.
Right.
Right. And I'm not talking about petty little, like, how was your day? How was the weather where you just came from, which was 3 streets down? Like the same as over here, man. Like
Right.
asking in-depth conversations that's going to spark some thought, right? Because I'm not saying it's a bad thing that people talk a lot. I think it's a good thing when I can get somebody else to talk a lot.
Right.
Because then I learn a lot.
Right.
And then I can decide whether or not I want to connect further with this person or not. Right. Questions, right?
Right.
Like if you ever, yeah.
And it's, I'm glad that you're saying that. It's questions with a genuine interest. It's, if you're stuck in the conversation, and now you say that I find myself doing this a lot, I'm like you, I'm the dick. I will drive the conversation to a point where I either piss the person off because they just don't want to talk to me anymore because I keep asking the questions, where I think they start reading between the lines. Like, I see what he's doing. He's trying to bring me back to reality of my negativity and whatever, but I digress. The point of questions that I want to go to is, if you have a genuine interest and it helps you get away from the topic of what they are stuck on, you can steer the conversation where they are talking about something different. And they do understand, like, okay, here, this guy is interested, but he's interested at his level. I say this to a lot of young folks that come talk to me from an interview standpoint. They're going to ask you a million questions because they truly want to know about you. What's going to shock them is if you ask questions back.
Oh, man.
Because the best part of an interview is when they say, do you have any questions for us? And you look down and they go, no, I'm okay.
How much do I get paid?
Yeah.
No.
Stupid questions like that. But it's, you start asking genuine, like, interesting questions or statements that's like a question like, tell me your best day. Tell me your best day at this job. Oh, well, tell me your worst day at this job. Like, now you've created this spark in the other person where you've asked a question or made a statement where you're like, oh, well, I got to think about that one. I'm just not spewing nonsense that normally comes out of my brain. Where interview's over, conversation's over, and that person is still thinking like, wow, that was a great question. And wow, that made me think. And they walk away like, that was impressive. Or maybe you intimidated them with the questions and they walk away and you're like, nice, I got to ask that question more often because the conversation over.
Well, and that's the point I'm trying to make here is questions are incredibly powerful in any interaction that you can have. And in interviews, it's insane the level of power that they actually have. If you ask the right questions, everyone goes into an interview thinking that they're the ones being interviewed.
Right.
It's like, why should I work here? Right. And ask the questions that lead that. Like, what do you love about this company so much? Why have you stuck around so long?
Right.
Right. And then that shows that, you aren't just a body.
Right.
In the interaction, in the relationship. And I'm using interviews as an example because that's where we were. But like, if you're asking questions, I'm no longer just the person that people are talking. I'm not just the wall that people are talking and bouncing stuff off of. And I'm not just the person who's just spitting back meaningless stuff, right? Like, I'm engaged in this conversation and now we can have a relationship or not have a relationship, right? But questions are just, it's just insane the lack of questions that we ask other people. Right.
Or do we ask any questions of other people because we're just so tired of their conversation?
Well, that's a good question, right? And sometimes, but that's the thing. So I'm all about making change if I want change. If this is a person that's constantly going to be in my life, maybe instead of always trying to avoid them, I can learn enough about them to be able to steer the conversation every time we come about. I can't do that if I'm not asking questions. Right. And people, well, that's manipulation. Like, yes, it is manipulation, right? It's manipulation with intent, right? It's not negative. I'm not trying to get you to do things that you don't want to do, right? I'm just trying to steer the conversation in a direction where we can have a positive relationship. And I'm not building a resentment because every time you talk, I get annoyed.
Right.
Right. Because then I am going to have to leave the relationship.
Right.
You know?
So you ask questions. I do this a lot. But they don't listen. They don't answer your questions. They still bring it. They are professional Eeyores from Winnie the Pooh. They're negative. They're this. They're that. And it's like, oh my God, there goes the air again. It's gone. Then what do you do?
Then you have fun with it.
I think that's the struggle that we all have. And what brought up this conversation is we're constantly stuck in conversations with people where you think, wow, why did you get up this morning? Yeah, I am Johnny Positive. I know you try to be. And we it's like, okay, yes, I have my bad days. And yes, when someone asks me a question, there may be the off the cuff, like, you know what, fuck today. I'm done with it. It's God, if one more person does something stupid, I'm going to go off. And then maybe that fleeting moment where I'm like, wow, that didn't sound right. I got to correct myself. But I think most people would just be like, yep, today sucked and everyone else sucks. And my life sucks. And my car sucks. And my wife and my husband sucks. And my kids suck. And my whatever. Like, wow.
Everybody needs to know about it too.
Right. Everyone needs to know about it. Like, I got to text people. I got to call people. I got to, it's this constant suck.
Oh, the TMI people, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How you doing? Oh, well, you really want to know? Like, oh shit.
It was on the toilet all morning and it's throwing. I'm like, dude, it's not.
Yep. I think my way of dealing with it and trying to work with it, and it's probably not right, is I just ignore and move on. I will avoid conversations with people because I can't deal with it. And if you're the person, and this is probably some advice here or whatever I say, and I've had these conversations with a lot of people, like they believe like they could fix the person. So they'll fight back, or they'll try and convince them that their thoughts are wrong. And it's like, well, why don't you go find a shoe and convince the shoe that it's a butterfly? It ain't listening. It can't listen. It's a shoe. And I don't say that in a mean way, but it's like you're arguing with someone that is not listening. Why do you even engage? Like, let them spew their shit and thank them for the time and move on. I know you want to one up them. I know you want to throw it back in their face. And I know you're like, I'm sick of this. I'm just going to freaking tell them, like, shut up. I'm so tired of your mouth. Like,
it shouldn't ever have to get to that point.
It always does.
But that's insane. I never want to feel like I'm going to fight you because I won't get out of a conversation with you.
Right. But I think some people, as much as, and I'm just thinking this now, as much as you are trying to avoid that person, you go out of your way to be in front of them. Like, okay, go ahead. Tempt me one time. Say one thing. I'm ready. I'm going at you this time. I am so sick of your negativity or your constant critiquing or you telling me this. Like, I'm ready. Like, for what? To just pour more gas on the fire? They're not freaking listening. They are who they are. And without professional help, your message is just going to ignite further negativity in them. Like, move on.
Well, that's the thing. People go into those kind of interactions expecting the other person actually cares.
Right.
Like, I'm going to yell at them. I'm going to do this. I'm going to correct all this stuff. And they're like, yeah. And then they'll really get it. It's like, no. It probably just made things worse.
No. And here's the other part too, that you wonder as you're having, and I see this a lot at work, as they're slamming someone else in front of you, like telling you, oh God, and this person and this person and this person. And you're like, wow, they're really hard on them. And then you try and change the conversation and you bring up someone else on a completely separate topic. And they're like, oh, did you know about this? And then they start negative with them. And before you know it, like 3 or 4 people they've been blasting. And then I click into, I wonder what they say about me. Like, what bad mouthing are they doing about me? And is it justified? Meaning, okay, they brought up some points about Kenny. Yeah, they're kind of accurate, but like, wow, they're really harping on it. Like, what have I done that now they're bitching to Kenny about me? And you think, man, is this just the person? Or are they the evil gossip spreader that just destroys the culture of a business or a family or a friendship? Or, is it someone that needs to be involved? I mean, as a consultant, it's my role to say, hey, I know they're your greatest sales rep and they put huge numbers on the board, but they're assholes. and they demean people and they shit on people because they're so good. And yeah, I know the revenues are awesome, but culturally they're destroying your company. Get rid of them.
So that leads me to a good question. When we have to decide, question, advice, whatever, we have to decide what we value,
right,
when we're going into these conversations, right? If I have a friend who tends to be negative, who I go into a conversation that's going to be 50-50, right? They tend to talk about a lot of the same things. If I value our friendship, because it's not 100% of the time, am I willing to put up with it for a little bit and just let them do what they do so that we can continue our relationship? Or do I find ways out of it? Or do I confront them? Or, you know what I mean? So like a lot of this comes down to with the company. It's like, okay, do I value revenue more? Or do I value the fact that they're an asshole? Right? So that I continue my relationship with them.
right.
You know, and a lot of it comes down to that too. It's like, okay, if you want to be the person that just continuously feeds into this other person's bullshit, right? Their long-winded conversations, their drain of energy and stuff like that, by all means, go for it. You know, I think would be cool is if we could all just have open, honest feedback and communication with each other, to where if you're my friend and you're just constantly going on about the same shit over and over and over again, or if you're constantly negative, I can say something to you without you getting offended and pissed off and wanting to leave the conversation completely. Why can't we do that?
I don't think people have the self-esteem to take that.
Well, that's what I mean. Like we get so easily, it goes back to like the trigger thing. It's like, why can't I just be like, hey, listen, man, like that's enough negativity for right now. Can we talk about something else?
Right. Here's something that I'm thinking when you say that. You're having a conversation with someone and they have a booger in their nose. Now, there are those people that would just stare at the booger and think, God, that is so embarrassing. Someone should tell them that they have a booger coming out of their nose. And yet you'll stare at them for 20 minutes while they're talking. And it's a nice conversation. Nothing's bad. But you don't want to say anything. Why? Because you'll embarrass them.
I don't know. I say something.
But that's me. I'm the guy that says, hey, you got a little cliffhanger right there. Like, bro, you're like, hey, let me give you a tissue. You got a booger. Like, and yes, for the fleeting moment, they may be embarrassed, but they're going to be thankful because that's one of those moments where you protected them. If I had that same conversation with someone and say, hey, I don't know if you know this, but you're really negative. Like this conversation sucking the air out of the room right now. So how about we just turn this thing into like what's going well in your life? And if you said something like that to someone, it's not the booger conversation. That's like they would take it as a personal attack.
Just like a stab in the heart.
Right. Yeah. Like, excuse you. And there are some people too, if you did say, hey, you have a booger in your nose, they would probably say, oh my God, let me leave. And they'll go check in a mirror. But really it's, yeah, they want to clear their nose of the booger, but they're so embarrassed. Like, how long was that there? Who else saw me? Like, did I walk around all night? And they're walking back to every conversation. Like, who fucking cares? Like, okay, you had a booger in your nose.
Yeah. In my mind, it's like, how many people didn't tell me?
Right. Well, but absolutely.
Right? Like,
but
I'm thankful for when somebody finally tells me. It's like, oh, thanks. Like,
right. But see, that's the self-esteem we have. If someone told me that and then I played it back instantly because my mind goes so fast, I would be like, you know, you'd see it, you play it all back in your head and you're like, okay, I talked to Carl, Sally, Becky, I had a conversation with my mom and my brother. I will stop the conversation and be the guy in the room and go, you assholes. It takes Johnny over here to have the balls to tell me I got a booger in my nose and none of you guys can tell me. You know, we all laugh about it, but that's my own, like, I think it's hilarious. Now I was walking around with a booger in my nose.
The booger, the body odor, the
whatever,
breath stinking.
Right.
Like, people are just like, it's like, I want to know these things.
Right.
If I stink, tell me, man.
Right.
Like,
but why can't we do that when they're stealing the room, when they're negative, when they're just annoying to be around?
Because people think you're being a dick.
Right. So
that sucks. Like,
that's why I believe those people who suck the air out of the room don't have the conscious understanding that when someone's talking with you or trying to help you, you believe they're coming at you. So,
that might ultimately be it.
and that's where I think your best answer or your best way to deal with that person is walk away. Like, end the conversation. Don't rebut them. I know that we say we poke the bear a little bit and try and get them going. I do that too. But I think the best way is to ignore them. And if their feelings are hurt, I don't know what else to say because they're hurt either way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if they feel alienated in the room, that's their problem. And I know that sounds mean. There's got to be some self-reflection where they go, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm big on consequences of actions.
Right.
Right. Eventually, either they figure it out or they don't. If they're not I would suggest trying to ask questions and maybe steer the conversation, right? Like, I don't just immediately go to avoiding people and ignoring them, right? Like, there's steps to take for me. And usually I have a positive intent behind the trolling, right? It's to steer the conversation elsewhere.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if you're really tired of this, like, just ask some questions. If they're totally oblivious to that, right, then maybe it is time to leave.
Right.
Maybe it's time to walk away. And again, like, I feel like so many people try to take personal responsibility for that stuff. Like, oh my God, if that hurts them, that's my fault. And it's like, no, it's not your fault. It's you setting a boundary in your life that says, I don't accept this energy anymore. I don't want anything to do with it.
Right.
Right. And then everything else is their responsibility. If they want to figure it out, cool. And maybe you're close enough to try to tell them. And if they get personally attacked, that's not on me. I was just trying to help. Right. You want to continue going about your life about that. Like, that's totally fine.
Right.
Ain't got nothing to do with me anymore. Right. Most of us just won't do it.
Right. So I think conversation wise about all this greatness and takeaways is, if you're involved with someone that sucks the air out of the room constantly, move on, ignore them. If they're family, if they're close friends, they're in your, they're your neighbor, they're whatever, make your relationship what it is, associate with them, but know that once you get in a conversation, they're going to take it to a level where you're like, I'm just not interested anymore. Then excuse yourself. Obviously do it with some couth. Just don't be a complete chotch.
Yeah.
But don't engage in their negativity. Don't feed their negativity. If they start talking poorly about someone, like, end the conversation. You don't have to say you could say, hey, that's not nice. But if they're not listening, they're not listening. So end the conversation by just, finding an excuse to leave. After a while, if the person gets it, maybe they'll understand I'm not being very nice. But if they don't, not your problem. Like, move on. All they're going to do is stir your pot to the point where now you're pissed, or the more you're around them, the more you're going to become like them. Like, now you're spewing negativity. Like, oof, table turned real quick. Like, so people always say, T, why are you so laid back? Again, goes back to purpose and what we say playbook. If you're not upsetting my life, if you're not in my way, if I don't need you from some aspect, not that I'm using you, but if you're not someone that is behind me fighting the fight that I want to fight, you're an acquaintance, regardless if you're my neighbor or a business partner or a family member. Like, you're not someone that's helping boost me, or finding the positive in what can be for all of us. I won't engage.
Yeah, I like the word compliment. Like, compliment my life. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great word. Compliment. I mean, there's no negative in compliment. Like, if you compliment someone, you found something good in them and you're letting them know. If you compliment the situation, you're adding value to it. If you're negative, if you're constantly pulling the air, no thanks. Ignore it. Don't get sucked into it. And I can't stress that enough. My job is what it is. I coach and I consult and I teach people things. And probably what I teach best is ignore. Don't get caught, like, worrying about nonsense that has no value. Like, do the best you can to assess the situation. I've said this in the previous podcast. Step out, pretend like you're a drone, and look down at the situation and say, okay, does your reaction add value to this, or does it just feed the fire? Most of the time it just feeds the fire. Step away, excuse yourself, and conversation's over. I don't care what they think. They're already thinking it. Move on, exit, stage left.
It's all the play anyways.
Right. So find your piece of what you're looking for and your direction. Sometimes you just feed the engine because you're supposed to. It's someone that you're supposed to have this conversation with, but limited to a certain time frame, and then get back to what you're supposed to be doing.
Obligated or not, you don't have to do any of it.
No.
You don't have to do it.
Right. So we'll end on that. It's, again, two positive guys trying to always stay positive and find the humor and everything. In this situation, you know what? Do the best you can to be that good person in asking great questions to individuals where you can steer the conversation to a positive, or at least to a level where it's an engaging conversation, or just move on because you know they don't have it in them. They're just going to constantly find the negative in everything.
Boom.
That's it, people. Go enjoy your day. Kick some ass today.
Before you do, though, make sure you subscribe, you like, and you hit the notifications things. Guys, listen, for us to keep making these podcasts, it really helps to have that engagement, to have the comments, to ask questions, to let us know what you want to talk about, to make sure you're subscribing and sharing this with your friends, right? Because it helps us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong,
right,
because we can take criticism.
Very much so. Let us have it.
All right, take care.
Enjoy.